Chapter 49. A New Job for Job. Martin Nielsen did not bother putting on a jacket or primping in front of a mirror. 3 months after Dolly's miscarriage, he was a ratty mess. Stepping out into the false warmth of the morning sun, he pulled his suspenders over his shoulders, reached into his pocket, and found his pocket knife. With the sharp blade, he shaved the stubble from his upper lip and chin, leaving a golden beard that covered his neck and jowls, a tribute to his dead firstborn. Dolly wears her pain on her face, and so do I, in my own way. The only reason he shaved away the hair from his mouth is that the blonde beard was easily stained by food and coffee, and if Dolly were ever to kiss him again, he could leave her no excuses not to. Standing on the hill, he could see all of his 320 acres. He was the fifth of 6 farms along Old Copper Road, all of which were considered worthless. The Forsberg farm existed on the rocky ridge between the lake and river. The McPherson farm had no... Hi. How are you doing?
Still bleeding.
Darn uterus.
Thought for sure this morning it would be all over the bed.
No.
Just, yeah. Luckily not.
Okay.
See you about 8 o'clock-ish.
Okay then. Sitting on the hill, he could see all... Okay, I said that already. The McPherson farm had no tillable land and was built entirely on slope. The Bordeaux farm sat on a low flood plain. The Larson land was level but riddled with rocks and ancient oaks. And the last plot, the Berg land, had 20 tillable acres surrounded by open fields of bedrock. His 320 acres, including Turtle Island, had 2 monstrous hills with a swamp between them. He'd built his house and farm buildings on the hill closest to the lake, plowed every stone from the field, and had since raised 2 successful wheat crops that now fed the local dairy herds. He turned to the southern hill, an untamed behemoth, knowing he'd have to tackle it after planting ended. Turning back to the lake, he spotted movement near the island. The dog pack returned. The dog pack consisted of Lars, Hans, Elias, Niles, Agnes, Mabel, and Sylvie Berg, although Martin didn't know which name belonged to which face. Their father, Olaf, was a drunk whose erratic moods would swing from violence to ridiculous paranoia. Martin often helped with projects, yet never saw help in return. Tools not locked away in the barn would often disappear, and those loaned never returned. Whites might have taken them, Olaf would claim rather than blaming the children. Now the pack marched up the hill. Martin met them so as not to disturb Dolly's sleep. "Good morning." "There's something on the island," Paul began. "I didn't see it myself, but Sylvie claims it was a ghost, and Niles thinks it was a banshee." "It was a naked singing woman," Niles added. "The death of Adam Thunderface has them hysterical. And you want me to check it out. It seems like this might be some sort of prank. God's honest truth. Pa was still sleeping, or else we would have told him. And seeing the island is on your property..." The rowboat was still down by the shore, but fear crawled up his spine and into the hairs of his neck and forearms. "I don't want the kids thinking I'm a coward." "Let's go check it out." As the Pied Piper of Hiawatha led the children, Martin battled indecision, and by the time he reached the shore, his body walked out into the water. "You little ones just stay on the shore. The rest of you walk where I walk." A skinny bridge of land, the tail of the turtle, connected the island, allowing him to keep his feet on solid ground and pass through clear, shallow water rather than the uncertainty under the depths of the rowboat. It also thinned the pack to just 3. Paul Berg talked as he walked. "Pa went to St. John yesterday, and Barnabas Hawes said something about that somebody at the brickyard got stabbed." "A stabbing or an accident?" "You don't say." Yeah, they brought him in the kiln room and sewed him up right there. Hawes didn't know who he was or who stabbed him. Strange, huh? I hope Nils Banshee doesn't have a knife. Martin reached into his pocket to check for his own knife. Anything supernatural would not be able to cause any physical. Niles shouted and pointed. See, I told you. I saw something, Mr. Nielsen. A naked woman rested on her side, a plaid dress draped as a blanket. Surrounding her, tufts of hair cut from her own head. Run back to your house, Niles. Fetch a blanket, Martin commanded. It's the Weber girl. He rushed forward, hesitating at both her condition and nudity. What have you done, child? What have you done? Let me die, she muttered. Martin scooped her cold, naked body into his arms and began walking. By the time he finished sloshing through the water, the Berg children had found a blanket. They all chattered theories as Martin dropped to a knee to let the girls help wrap her. Well, Dolly's in for a surprise. The crisis seemed to end Dolly's depression, for as soon as the Berg children left the house, Dolly focused all her attention toward tending to Lily Weber. Dolly nursed her through hypothermia, then dressed her, fed her, and even helped shape her hair into a short bob. Two days after finding her, Lily walked out of the bedroom built for their miscarried child. Come, sweetheart, Dolly called to Lily. Have a seat. I have bacon, eggs, and bread for breakfast. Lily's arms trembled, and her wide eyes were ringed with dark circles. Martin sat silently with his cup of coffee. Modesty caused him to look at his plate as she sat down, even though she was now clothed in one of his wife's dresses. The men at camp said you bolted from the camp the day after the incident. Folks assumed you went to Leech Lake to be with your people, he said to fill the silence. They killed the man who murdered your family. Dolly gasped and shot him a dirty look. Please, Martin, not at the table. Poor girl's terrified, he argued back. She needs to know that there's no danger out there anymore. Lily scoffed, then hung her head. I'm going to bring you to Split Rock, Martin finally said. Sister Inez has been looking for you and has a place prepared for you to stay. Has Father Guerin returned? I don't know anything about Father Guerin, but I know Sister Inez is a good woman who will look after you. Lily continued eating without responding. An hour later, Martin sat beside Lily on the bench of the wagon as they left the farm on top of the grassy hill to descend into the dark woods of Old Copper Road. Lily kept her eyes fixed on Dolly's borrowed shoes. The poor girl was suffering. But what didn't she tell us? Propriety and duty called for him to bring her to a place of shelter. But as he passed through the sinister woods, his mind took him to occult places. He wanted to keep her, protect her, interrogate her. Her eyes held answers. Try not to blame God for this, Martin said as he passed through the darkest tangle of oak branches. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I depart. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. That's from the book of Job. I read it several times after my wife and I lost our child. He sighed. Job had it pretty rough, too, and in his darkest hour, he kept his heart turned to God. I used to think it was a parable about hard times, but now I know evil can truly prey on a man. I get it now. Lily looked at the passing tree trunks, giving a small shrug. The wagon turned north, the sinister oak trees giving way to another grassy meadow where Buffalo Creek leaked. where Canaransi Creek leaked floodwaters from the ice field along the southwestern corner of Lake Manitou. "Why did you scoff earlier?" Martin pressed. Lily didn't answer. Chapter 50. Forming a Loop. After 2 weeks in the shelter of the convent, Lily Weber sat up from her bed, determined to end her miserable life. The pain of loss did not lessen, as the nuns had promised. Thoughts of Nanak and Winnie normally brought a torrent of tears, but Lily finally emptied the well. The cotton sheet twisted upon her thigh, and she slowly pulled it free from her weight and the rest of the bedding until it rested in a bundle between her feet. She picked up a corner and wrapped the thin fabric around her forearm. This will do. The nun sacrificed the best room for her guest, giving her a nice top-floor room with a balcony that overlooked the yard, the town, and the entire valley. Dawn had not yet broken, leaving the world dark, like my soul. Standing in her nightgown, Lily once again let the cold stab at her flesh as penance for her deeds. She walked over to the railing. A jump would only break my leg, not my neck. She sat down, not in resignation, but in determination, and placed her foot against one of the square-cut railing posts. Slowly she pushed until all of her weight leaned against it. Not only did the railing push forward, but the single post began to lean, slipping free from the single nail that held it into place. The carpenter built it for appearance, not a suicide attempt. From the depths of darkness, a shape took form, capturing her focus. A symbolic death. A giant willow tree stood in the front yard, its branches level with the third floor of the convent. I used to love climbing trees as a child, when I still had a family. I could climb up in the arms of the willow, wrap the sheet around an overhanging branch, and a young man approached, foiling her plan. Under the cover of darkness, he warily jogged from the northern edge of the property, making a beeline for the willow. Once he stood on the branches, he reached down and picked up a knife on the ground. He began cutting leafless fronds down from the dormant tree. I've seen this before. Setting the knife back down, the young man in the black slouch hat pushed aside the curtain of willow and stepped under its canopy. Lily stood. This can't be happening. She rose. Leaving the sheet on the balcony floor, she leaned far over it, peering to the ground below. She saw someone's feet. My feet? Fear did not pass through her as she climbed up onto the railing, and her toes blindly found the lattice that would act as a ladder. She didn't fear slipping. She'd already seen herself climb down it months earlier. When she reached the bottom, she did not turn to face the young woman now laying there. Lily knew who she was. Instead, she followed the young man wearing her father's hat. How did he get it? Is he one of my father's men? What's he doing under the willow? Lily cautiously approached, her bare feet touching the cold grass. The fronds moved, and the young man stepped out, looking right at her. It was indeed her father's slouch hat, missing the raven wings. The young man had stolen other things as well. McGeesy's mischievous smile and eyes that belonged to Lily? Who are you? She asked, but her voice spooked him, and the young man turned and ran back where he'd come from where he'd come. Willow for a dream catcher. Lily remembered Nanak's tutelage. The young man came to make a dream catcher. At her feet, she saw the knife, which shimmered strangely between looking rusted and new. Even holding it in her hand, the shifting reality changed. She reached up and cut a few fronds. In doing so, she noticed the other apparition. Under the tree, an old man sat in a metal chair. its rear legs touching the trunk. He watched her approach, lifted a weak hand, and said, "You finally come. Who are you?" "Omadai," the old man answered. "Excuse me?" Lily asked, remembering Nanak's word for jar, but the old man was not native. "I was marked from birth and brought to this cursed place as the main course for the feast. I've been trying to fight death my whole life, and now, at the end, I'm fighting death another way. They always say it's darkest before the dawn." His words trailed off. "I was beginning to think you weren't going to come." His lips quivered. "I'm afraid, Lily. I need your help. You need to find me." "I have found you right now," Lily said. "I don't understand." The old man lifted his hand and brushed aside the white hair on the scalp to reveal a birthmark. "When you sang the song, you not only woke enemies, but you also called allies. We'll save the children together." Lily knew the birthmark. "Albert?" The old man nodded. "Yes, now go make the dream catcher, and then we'll talk more about turning the tides of battle. You've lost enough. Now it's time for you to start fighting." Old Albert faded, and Lily soon stood alone. As she stepped out from under the willow, she took the thin end of the fronds and the cut ends and formed a temporary loop of a new web, just as grandfather taught me.
Chapter 53. Something's Rotten. St. John, Minnesota, April 1898. The stab wound ached, and Halvard Dobie worried the stitching might have opened up during his ride into town. As he approached the Bonnie Lass Hotel and Saloon, he pictured pus and excrement mixing together under his skin. Beside him on horse, Walter Stewart schmoozed with locals he knew and recognized, while Dobie snarled through the pain and agitation. Stewart had brought John Kirkpatrick to Dobie's new homestead on the western bank of the Blue Knife River, so that they could travel together to the future location of the Nicollet Dam. Things were happening quickly now, so Dobie tried not to be the one to slow things down. Riding around Hiawatha County all day had taken its toll, though, and he couldn't help but grunt as he dismounted his horse. Shall I have someone fetch a doctor?" Walter Stewart asked. "Are you sick, Dobie?" Kirkpatrick asked, unaware of what had happened a few weeks earlier. Dobie scowled at Stewart for even referencing his wound in public and shook his head. When the three men entered the saloon, everyone else was drinking at the bar. Adriana Sinclair, the daughter and sole heir of William Sinclair, had earlier insisted her father purchase the Bonnie Lass Hotel and Saloon as part of the negotiation to visit her uncle and cousins out west. She demanded indoor plumbing, running waters, and toilets, making her hotel the most extravagant in the area while also the most raucous. Far from a classic Western saloon, her saloon nevertheless had several locals sitting in booths and tables for a Saturday night meal, yet there were no prostitutes or cowboys to be seen. Even so, Adriana stood behind the bar, serving alcohol to her fantasized lawman, Bushy Bill Morrison, along with the Eastern guests, Ira Douglas and a Zero gun. All five of the Sinclair cousins had been wild during her youth back in Nova Scotia, but the youngest, Adriana, had studied the worst behaviors of her elder cousins and perfected them. Had cousin Jack Sinclair not died in the tragic fire, Adriana would have been a mother with children by now, but instead she continued to host her own private party each weekend as owner and hostess of her own hotel. Seeing her again after a few weeks, Dobie almost choked. Oh, good God, is she pregnant? Independently wealthy and 1,000 miles from her father, Her despair after the death of Jack had turned to shameless hedonism in recent years, with Bushy Bill Morrison being the most recent to claim her bed. Perhaps she'll go home to Nova Scotia if she's going to be a mother. "It's good to see you looking well," Gunn greeted Dobie coyly as they reached the bar. "Does everybody know my shame?" For generations, the Dobie family served as protectors for the Grand Masters of the Order of Eos, and had even served a few Scottish kings. In his youth, Dobie had participated in Highland games and could wield his family's ancestral broadsword, so it embarrassed him that he'd nearly been killed a few weeks earlier. "I certainly have regained my appetite," Dobie said, patting his arrow gun's even larger gut. "I hope you left something for supper." "My cooks can prepare as much supper as you can eat," Adriana Sinclair chirped. "Shall we meet upstairs in the private lounge in an hour?" The details were quickly decided. Walter Stewart went to go fetch his brothers-in-law, while the guests retired to their second-floor rooms to freshen up. After spending the winter in the cramped hotel room, Dobie had spent the past week overseeing the construction of his new house a few miles upstream from Lake Manitou. The house was to be built on a hill between the headwater of the Blue Knife River and the nearby Crow Wing River, with Nimrod Crossing within walking distance. The location also placed him at the center of Hiawatha County, where he could oversee all Eos business. Back in his old room, he stripped off his riding jacket, his vest, and shirt to inspect the wound. Surprisingly, despite the pain, the wound looked secure. His fingers pressed around the scar tissue with no visible issues. "If only I'd grabbed the kid, all this talk of monsters in the water would be put to rest," Dobie thought as he stripped off his shirt. He splashed some water on his face, took off his shoes, and flopped down on his bed to collect himself for a few minutes. With the return of Ira Douglas and his arrow gun, the final stage of the project would begin, building the Nicollet Dam. On paper, Dobie would supervise the construction of the dam with John Kirkpatrick running it when finished. Strangely, the Nicollet Dam project had brought the two sides of the fractured family together, and Dobie could keep hotheads like Pierre Del Hutt from his aggressive nature and dullards like Walter Stewart from his own stupidity. The brief rest allowed Dobie to recover, and after slipping on his vest, he checked his pocket watch. Time to eat. Dobie slipped on a pair of casual shoes instead of his riding boots and stepped out into the hallway of the Bonnie Lass Hotel and Saloon. He knocked on the doors of Zero Gun, Ira Douglas, and Bill Morrison before continuing down the hall to the private dining room. Adriana Sinclair's blonde hair flowed over her shoulders in green velvet ballroom dress that not only revealed her ample cleavage, but also the bulge at her belly. She's indeed pregnant and too carefree to hide it. Even though she was a woman, Adriana was allowed to sit at the head of the table and listen to all Eos discussions. Her father William had raised her to worship the old gods and withhold nothing from his daughter. Halvard Dobie sat at the other end of the table. On his left, Ozias Haggard, Philip Marquette, and Walter Stewart sat in rank, while on his right, Zero Gun, Ira Douglas, John Kirkpatrick, and Bill Morrison filled the long table. "Our generation will lay the foundation for the final stages of this grand plan," Ira Douglas explained during the main course. To the public, Triton Corporation would transform the Blue Knife River into a logging corridor, with the dam controlling water levels to transfer product from the pine forest in the north to the sawmill in Split Rock. Of course, our true purpose is to ensure flooding doesn't threaten our mining at Haggard Quarry. Haggard would run the excavation and sale of quartzite products in the county, with Marquette's business branching off into gravestones and monuments, a modest business that'll draw no attention. "What about the Chippewa?" Morrison dramatically shifted the conversation. "We can't forget about them." Ira Douglas shrugged and turned to Dobie. "Is there an issue still? The bridge and dam are happening. There's no turning back now." "Keep it together, Morrison." Something had happened to Morrison the day the posse shot and killed Andrew Thunderface. It's not the rest of Turtle Island Reservation that worries me, Morrison continued. As long as the Chippewa are still living in Minnesota in large numbers, we need to worry. We're not living in 1862 anymore, Bill. What's the population of Hiawatha County now? The Zero gun cleared his throat. When I began, it was about 160, but now we're well over 10,000 souls. It's more than doubled in the past 10 years alone. I'm more aware of the efforts of the Makata Settlement Claim Association's efforts, Morrison muttered bitterly. I got the first taste when I fell into the fucking lake. Thanks to Gunn, we're sitting on a powder keg, gentlemen, and you all act as if there's no threat to us just because we put the matches in a drawer and locked it? Do you not know the history of this place? The Chippewa know how to start a fire, too. God damn it, Morrison, keep your mouth shut. Halvar Dobie not only knew where all the bodies were buried, but he also knew the truth behind the settlement of the Hiawatha County. Back in Albany, a Zero gun had become a wealthy man selling land, but through his company he determined who lived there. A Zero gun had chosen the name of St. John and Nimrod Crossing after his father had taken the liberty of naming Hiawatha County. Our politicians will take care of the Chippewa if you just let them do their job. Where there's smoke, there's fire, Morrison continued loudly. And if none of us woke the dark spirits, then our enemies must be responsible. If you won't let me kill the Jesuit, then let me deal with the Chippewa. Easy, Bill, Stewart added. Slow and steady, Morrison, Ozias Haggard joined. Dobie could tell none of the locals understood Morrison's point, except that of a racist bigot bent on genocide. The dark shadows are stirring, Morrison continued. You all rejoice in the bloody deeds of Andrew Thunderface because you can now claim your dam. A man I'd known for a decade lost his mind. He didn't kill Nanak because of your bribe. Something happened to him. Walter Stewart smirked and looked down. Your names are on Gunn's list too, Morrison shouted. Do you think it was good fortune your fathers all received such prime lots? Morrison, Dobie barked and pounded the table with a clenched fist. That's enough. Instead of ambition, fear motivated Morrison now. Adriana Sinclair, who knew the true power of Eos, swept in to whisper in Morrison's ear. His anger subsided, and he composed himself. I apologize, gentlemen. If you don't mind, I'll excuse myself and remain your humble servant. Dobie, don't underestimate our enemies. With that, Bushy Bill Morrison retreated, and for the next hour, the murder of Nana Conan was rehashed from a legal perspective, moral perspective, and finally from a spiritual perspective. I didn't mean to insult Morrison, Stewart said. If anything, I meant it as a compliment to the job he's done in obtaining those lots. I know the tales about this place. I'm not a fool. And this is the reason I'm building a house in Hiawatha County. I just hope I don't have to kill any of these men to keep our secrets. Morrison serves a different purpose, just as you serve a specific purpose for Triton Corporation and also the Order of Eos. Continue to prove your loyalty, and Eos will lift your children into higher and higher positions of authority and knowledge. Trust what we are doing, and you will be rewarded. They all nodded, but Ozias Haggard dared to ask a question. I'm not questioning or showing a lack of trust, but how deep do you want the quarry by 1910? The Zero gun chuckled and raised his glass. That's the spirit, Oz. That's the spirit. 2 hours later, Halvar Dobie rested on his bed thinking of blood. His family joined the Sinclair family tree back in the 1300s, making him relatively fresh blood. Other families, however, went back to the days of the dawn. On the other side of the wall, the Morrison and Sinclair bloodlines giggled, gossiped, and groaned. Did Adriana tell Morrison about the purpose of the Makata Settlement Claim Association's purpose? Now she really has to go back to Nova Scotia. Am I dooming my own children by moving here? Am I to be part of the great buffet? A scream tossed Dobie from his bed. Adriana. His hand found his pistol, and even though he were wore only cotton drawers. He burst into the lit hallway. He put a shoulder into the locked door, and when he stumbled across the room, he found a nude Adriana huddled in the corner of the candlelit bathroom, and a nude Morrison looking down at the clawfoot bathtub. Seeing Dobie, she scrambled from the corner and ran into his protection, immediately hiding herself from the safety of his left arm. His gun pointed to Morrison, who kept his focus on the bathtub. "It's gone," he muttered. "It went right back down the drain." "It had black fingers," Adriana added. They reached out and took hold of my ankle. What was it? What was it?" Dobie pushed her aside for a moment. "Get dressed," he said softly, and stepped forward to confront the threat. He pointed the pistol at Morrison's chest. "Bill?" Morrison mumbled. It just swirled around in the water for a minute, and then it just vanished." Dobie studied Morrison's eyes for any signs or symptoms, but only saw terror and confusion. "Get some clothes on, Bill." There was nothing but soap suds to shoot in the tub, and as Dobie eyed the dark drain, he heard sloshing and splashing. "Zero?" You gotta believe me," Morrison said. Something came up out of the water." "I think I believe you." Dobie rushed from Morrison's room to find Ira Douglas standing in the hallway. "What's happening?" A Zero gun hadn't bothered latching his door, but inside the bathroom door was closed. When Dobie opened it, he looked into the drowned, dead eyes of a murdered man. Venom from the serpent's fangs.
While the Cat's Away, Chapter 51. The next morning, Lily woke to find the 3 harvested lengths of willow beside her bed. With her room filled with natural light, she found a small piece of yarn, which allowed her to cross the narrow and wide end of the stick she'd taken and secure them together. Let's see if old Albert is right. Quickly, she prepared herself for the day and sat on the edge of the bed with the loop on her lap. The old man had spoken of loops. Her loop began when Bushy Bill Morrison knocked her upside the head, resulting in her being placed on the porch. It ended with thoughts of suicide following the trauma she'd seemingly caused, resulting in climbing down the trellis. Nothing can change it now. She looked at the webless loop. It's all in the past. To fill the loom, she needed the right supplies, and nothing at good counsel would give her what she needed. Only home could. She hunched forward, the pain pulsing through her body, like wringing a wet towel. Not a drop remained. Footsteps sounded, and Lily straightened as Sister Inez gently opened the door, peeked in, then stepped through. "It's good to see you awake." Bitter thoughts bubbled in Lily's mind, but her thoughts of suicide had also been wrung dry. She nodded. Sister Inez moved to sit beside her. When nothing was said, Lily filled the silence, asking, "When I go home? When can I go home?" Sister Inez gulped. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. We're all here to help you get through these dark days. Yet more dark days are ahead. I can't stay in this room all day. It appears as if God has already made plans for you, Sister Inez said, her tone hesitant. There was an accident at the sawmill. Lily's heart leapt. Was it Albert? Sister Inez went on to speak of a man named Farrell Looning who had suffered an accident while working at the sawmill that stood over Split Rock Creek. He'd broken both legs and needed extra care that his wife Florence could not provide alone. He broke his leg saving Albert, young Albert. Would you be interested in taking on the position to help care for Mr. Looning? Is he the ally old Albert mentioned? Lily nodded, and the details came pouring out faster than Lily could process. Sister Inez left with a hug and a smug look of contentment. It'll take more than a job to fix me. Lily returned to her mourning, even though she could now see the end of the dark tunnel, and before bed she hung the frame of the dream catcher on the trellis railing. Old Albert was a man of his word. "The magic is in the willow," his voice came to her dreams. "The old tree outlived me, didn't it? But I'm trapped in its memory like a ring in its trunk. Its roots connect the past, present, and future. Let me teach you." Lily sat up in bed, even though it was unclear if it was for real or just in her dream. Through the frame, she saw the old man's face. Very soon, a young man will face a critical choice. You can control the narrative. Farrell Looning will be given a choice to leave Lake Manitou, and if he does, the loop will be destroyed, and I will become just a dream. You can shape the future, and by doing so, you can fight the Winter Maker. This will be your first battle. Florence Looning returned from the mercantile store and gasped twice upon entering her home. The first gasp came when she saw how clean her kitchen had become since earlier in the morning. The second gasp came when she saw Lily's hands. "My dear child, you've worked your hands raw." "I don't mind." "Well, I do. Farrell will think less of me if he sees how clean you have made my kitchen. I asked you to tidy up a little. I didn't expect this." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Looning." "Don't apologize, dear girl. Help me unpack these groceries." Lily snatched up the snacks. Don't say dear girl. Hold. Okay. "You think Kaiser Wilhelm was coming to visit," Florence commented under her breath. "So I did well?" "Of course you did well. This is far more than I bargained for when I told Sister Inez I'd hire you to help keep around the house." "I know, but work helps keep my mind off things," Lily admitted. "Besides, you have an important guest coming tonight. Minetta Fisher will probably try to steal you away from me, but she won't have you without a fight," Florence joked. "Is Farrell sleeping?" Lily nodded. "Good. I hope tonight does not tire him out too much." For the rest of the afternoon, Lily helped Florence Looning prepare the meal for the evening's festivities. It had taken only a few days for her to meet all the friends and family of the Loonings as they stopped by to call on Farrell. She knew who was to come tonight and what each of them were particular about. At 4 o'clock, while the food cooked in the oven, Lily helped Florence dress her husband for the evening. What had been awkward the first few days had become second nature after a week. Soon, Farrell was buttoned and belted and carried out into the living room, where his legs were propped up in front of his chair. And when the guests arrived, Lily hustled from the kitchen to answer the door. "Good evening, Lily," Dr. Jenkins said, his wife silent at his side. "Could you tell Mr. Looning that Dr. Jenkins and his wife are here?" "Not a child," Lily submitted with a nod and motioned them inside to the dining room. "Farrell Looning, you are not following your doctor's orders very well," Dr. Jenkins declared upon seeing Farrell in the chair. "You're supposed to stay off those legs for a month." "I couldn't entertain guests from my bed. Besides, I'm quite sick of staring at that ceiling." No longer her patient, Farrell now wore a heavy tweed jacket and a wavy flop of hair that refused to be contained by the grease used to keep it in place. His upper lip was bare, but his chin and neck had hair as brown as his head. Why doesn't he shave it all off? He'd look much more handsome. Florence had found herself a good man, Lily decided. Although Farrell looked rugged and fierce, he'd show grace and manners during his darkest moments. He even insisted Lily called him Farrell instead of Mr. Looning, reminded Lily only a few years separated them. "Florence, if I'm not mistaken," Mrs. Jenkins politely greeted when Florence entered the room. "I've heard all about your husband's heroism at the mill. You must be proud." "I couldn't be prouder." Suddenly, all eyes turned to Lily, and she almost ran. "Lily has been taking care of me, as you can see," Farrell smiled. "Young lady, it is a tragedy what happened to your family. What a horrible, horrible situation. Too horrible is how heartfelt." Lily bowed her head, unsure of what to say. "We thank the Lord for bringing Lily into our lives. He has seen fit to test both of us, and Lily has been more than up to the challenge. Did you hear about the latest death? Mrs. Jenkins asked, clearing looking. Looking for a bit of gossip now that the pleasantries were exchanged. George Fisher's business partner. Ira Douglas, Farrell asked. No, the fat one, Mrs. Jenkins whispered. A Zero gun. Farrell tossed out another name Lily thought she knew. That's the name. Apparently, he had a heart attack and drowned to death in his hotel bathtub. The battle rages without me. The darkness is spreading. That's terrible, Florence repeated, and when she put a hand upon Lily's shoulder, she jumped. Hearing the names of Douglas and Gunn, she finally remembered them being mentioned in passing by either the St. John businessman or Marshall Morrison the previous summer. Now one of them, Zero Gun, was dead. Is this my fault too? Her guilt doubled when what happened to Albert and Fisher and the Solomon was retold. So when the Fisher family arrived for dinner, including Albert, Lily stayed in the kitchen, unable to face young Albert. If I ran out of the house, my destiny would change. I have to have the power to destroy the loom before it has even begun. After supper, George Fisher announced, I asked you here tonight to properly thank you for saving my son's life and to reward you for your dedicated service at the mill. Dr. Jenkins said that although he managed to save your legs, you are going to struggle returning to your former abilities. I'm still young. I'll bounce back in no time. I can do my job with one leg, if need be. The sooner I get back to my girls, the better. Your girls? Farrell smiled. My saw blades, old Betsy, Abigail, Evangelina, Rosemary. I need to make sure Walter Core is brushing their teeth properly. You'll always have a job at the Fisher sawmill, but I want to speak to you about other opportunities. Oh? Lily peeked in from the kitchen, her eyes finding Albert. As you've heard, Triton will soon begin work on the construction of the Nicollet Dam, which means that by this fall, production of the sawmill will improve. I know how fond you are of your saws, and I hope that you'll take your love of mechanization into a new area. I intend to expand the lumber mill into a much larger operation that can provide all of Hiawatha County with inexpensive lumber. To do this, I need a man who could oversee the expansion of the facilities. Behind the kitchen door, Lily slumped against the wall. Nicollet Dam? Is my home gone already? How can they do this? I appreciate your faith in me. I can take things apart and put them back together again, but I don't design machines, Farrell said humbly. I understand. It will take a few months for your legs to heal, and during that time, I would like to send you and Florence to Chicago to learn about some of the lumber mills there. I would pay for your travel, of course, with the hopes that you could return next spring and oversee the changes that need to happen. Mr. Fisher, you offer us too much. Lily returned to the doorway. The choice of Farrell looning was the first string upon which everything else was built on the loom. Accepting the job would likely destroy the future described by old Albert. I still have Albert, thanks to you. The rest of this is meaningless without him. What do you say, Farrell? We have a deal, Mr. Fisher. Albert suddenly pushed away from his spot at the table. Albert, are you feeling all right? The boy shook his head and bolted for the door. Lily began to follow. I'll fetch him, she offered when his mother went for the door. Albert Fisher had run a block from the house by the time Lily spotted him. Even in a dress, she easily ran him down. You must come back. I don't want to die, Albert wheezed. Neither do I. He shook his head. If I stay, it will get me. What will get you? The porcupine men are hunting me. They want to give me to the monster in the lake, but they are afraid of Mr. Looning. Just like the children in my dream. What do you mean? Lily asked. Even old Albert's mention of allies suddenly made sense. Someone let them out. Now I hear them every night when I dream. They are afraid of Mr. Looning. If he leaves, they'll drag me down to the monster in the water. I know it. Then Stay away from the water. What? He asked in a whimper. Lily moved his hair, studying the birthmark. Don't go near the lake. Dreams can't hurt you, but the water can. You believe me? Albert's eyes grew wide, hopeful. I do, she soothed. I did see a ghost that day when I saw you by the banks of the creek, but I think something far worse is waiting in Lake Manitou. What does it want? I don't know yet, but I promise you, I'm going to find out and stop it. Lily knew the terror in the boy's eyes was real. She was afraid too. Have you heard of the Great Thunderbird? He shook his head. The Great Thunderbird is the enemy of the monster you saw. It flies high above Lake Manitou, waiting for the monster to come out. When it does, it'll strike the monster with its bolts of lightning. Really? Lily felt Nannick's voice whispering in her mind as she replied, The monster is a coward, which is why it tried to pick on little boys like you. She paused and looked up to the heavens. But the Great Thunderbird is hunting it right now, waiting for the water monster to make a mistake, and then zap! Albert smiled at Lily's dramatic lightning bolt reenactment. How do you know? I didn't. I'm trusting you. You saved my life. I learned about it from my grandfather right before he died. I'll make sure the monster goes back down from where it came. Agreed, Albert? At this, she added, My friend Father Guerin is out there looking for answers. And when my brother McGeesy gets back from school, both of us will find... All of us? All of us will find a way to stop this. Do you believe me? He smiled. But do I believe myself? There's something else I need to tell you. I had a dream about you and others. When I dreamed it, I didn't even know whose faces I saw, but one by one I met the others. I think the people in the dream are protectors. I think we've been chosen to protect you from this monster. Together, we can save the children. The faces of Bjorn Forsberg, Martin Nielsen, and Kermit Crane came to her mind, joining Albert Fischer and Farrell Looning. I think we need to keep Looning here, don't you agree? Albert nodded again. You're not alone, Albert. And I think once I figure out a plan, you're going to live to be an old man. So don't worry about these things that are hunting you, she sighed. But for now, just stay away from the lake, understand? If my magic woke them, then I should be able to put them back where they came from. All I need is a little time to figure it out. Can you keep this a secret for now? Albert took her by the hand. Yes, I'm glad I'm not alone. Until Father Guerin returns, we're going to hold steady, agreed? Agreed. When Lily opened the door, Mrs. Fisher and Mrs. Looning fawned all over Albert. Thank you, Lily, Florence whispered, and gave her a squeeze. Mr. Looning has something for you, Minetta Fisher said once she stopped hugging him. Albert cautiously approached the wounded lumberjack. I wanted you to have this. I was wearing it when I jumped in the water after you. Albert turned over the light package wrapped in tissue. Go ahead, open it. The boy tore through the tissue to discover a polished wooden cross on a leather band. I know it doesn't look like much, but it saved my life twice in the water. When I was a young man at your daddy's mill, I saw the largest oak tree I'd ever seen. While it was going down the chute, the old oak tree stopped the saws dead. The workers tried again, and it would go no further. Inside this old oak was wood so dense that the metal teeth of our best blades couldn't cut it. We had to pull it out and hack it around its core. It kept the heart of the tree and whittled a crucifix from it. I wanted you to have it to keep you safe. Can I keep it? Albert's mom sniffled, sharing a look with Mr. Fisher. Absolutely, pal. Albert slipped the leather over his neck. He looked at Farrell and then over at Lily. Lily felt jealous, but tried to smile. Later that night, Lily helped Florence ease Farrell back into bed. Although she usually kept her mouth shut and did her duty, she lingered before leaving to return to the nuns at good counsel. Albert seemed to like that gift, she said softly. I wasn't sure a boy of 10 would appreciate it, Farrell admitted with a laugh. That was a true story about the old oak. It really was the hardest tree I'd ever come across. Now I must do my part to keep him here. You said the crucifix saved your life twice. What happened the other time? Farrell's eyes widened, and for a moment He gave her the same look Albert had given earlier. The toughened sawmill turned into a frightened child. I'd rather not talk about it. And even though Lily nodded and joined Florence in the doorway, she knew. Farrell Looning knows about the Manitou. Welcome to the team. Chapter 52. Darkest before the dawn. The new Dreamcatcher was finished. After working at the Looning home, instead of walking up the hill to the convent, Lily walked toward Old Copper Road. And now I need some answers. Part of her wanted to find Winnie's spirit. The spirits of the Sioux women were strong enough to haunt that road after a century after the Yip Sioux and the Wijigan clan sacrificed the captured Sioux children of the Manitou. After death, then she hoped some of her mother that it still existed, so she could beg for forgiveness. Will she forgive me for what I did, or grandfather? On the southern end of Split Rock, Lily walked past George Fisher's new lumber mill. She paused to measure how the landscape had been changed. The Fisher mansion once stood alone, but now acres of trees had been cleared for the big buildings. A small house had also been built for Farrell Looning. After Lily told him a few Chippewa tales, Looning began to connect the dots. His confession came the next day, and the following he rejected George's offer to travel. Then Looning agreed to oversee the construction, an assistant to the hired engineer. When his wife was out of the room, Lily and Farrell shared the truth they knew. Now I need to tell Father Guerin. Just behind the new lumber mill and the Vance Lake Creamery, the dirt road followed the slope of the Crow Wing riverbank to the new trestle bridge. On the north side of town, a big wooden covered bridge spanned the junction of Split Rock Creek and Crow Wing River, but this bridge was built of riveted iron beams. As Lily walked up the trestle bridge for the first time, she noticed the pine boards placed over the metal framework were still white and full of sap. She slipped through the long metal rods that acted as a horizontal railing and sat on the edge of the deck with her feet dangling 20 feet above the Crow Wing River. The edge of the threshold. After weeks of respite from dreams, Tokpai, and the Manitou, she formed a theory that the Crow Wing River formed some sort of barrier, and her Old Testament studies confirmed this theory. The Hebrews had a watery underworld called Sheol, which explained to her what happened to Jonah the prophet when he drowned. Behind the gates of Sheol, the righteous dead were separated into something later known as Abraham's bosom, or paradise. The Greeks and Egyptians had a similar concept, where the spirits of the dead journeyed upon this underworld watery conduit till it led them to the land of the dead. Nanak had Jibbe-Zebi, the river of souls, which leads to the land of the midnight sun, where her people spent eternity. Crow Wing River flowed south, where it would join the Mississippi River, which flowed into the Gulf of Mexico, and the Greek Oceanus, where the four rivers would guide the souls to the underworld. For everybody but the souls who died near Lake Manitou. For on the other side of the granite ridge, the souls that died in or near Lake Manitou stayed, only able to materialize as ghosts and wander a few yards from the shore before some black magic pulled them back. Like a fur trader setting traps for wary animals, Lily hung her dream catcher on one of the iron beams and left it overnight to see what she would find the next morning. Please, I need answer. The air was cool enough that she could see her breath when she climbed over the railing to retrieve it the next morning. A wave of disappointment overcame her when Nanak's lessons failed to produce results. She wasn't sure why it didn't work. The willow hoop that hung on the metal beams had a web similar to every other dreamcatcher Nanak had made, meaning there were almost 100 little squares and crooked rectangles formed by the threads. Had I forgotten a step? A loop he made? Frustrated, Lily was about to drop the dreamcatcher into the water when she paused, hands curling around the dew-covered web. There, in the magical threshold that separated Lake Manitou from the rest of the world, her dreamcatcher became a window. Instead of seeing right through the web, 100 windows appeared. It confused Lily at first because the physical world remained mostly the same, regardless of how she held it. If she held it over the river, she'd see windows to the river, but not all of them were the same. In one window, she would see raging water. In another, a frozen sheet of ice. The same thing happened when she turned it toward the trees. In the present, she would see a mighty oak along the shore, but in another, the oak would appear as a seedling. In another, it was a gnarled old log. Then there was an eye. She almost dropped it and ran, but she steadied her nerves and found the bottom window marked by one of the beads she'd obtained for the nuns and peered right back. Moving her face close to the window, Lily found herself staring at a woman in her late 30s. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a ponytail. The right side of the woman's tawny face had a scarred patch of skin where the eye should have been. The one-eyed woman wore a tight-fitting undershirt with the icon of a fierce bird upon her chest, the great thunderbird. Her eye was the color of lightning. "Anine, Lily, it is nice to finally find you," the woman greeted with a carefully formed syllables. Who are you?" "You shouldn't know my name. Time is very delicate," she replied, struggling through her slurred speech. "Call me Future Spider." Spider. Are you a relative of mine? Lily thought of all the children she'd seen who shared her eyes. The woman shook her head. "No, but I do share the blood of the Wintermaker with you, which is why I'm able to speak with you here. I know that the Wintermaker has done to your family, and I am here to offer my help. As you can see, he has hurt me also, physically and emotionally. Alone we are not strong enough, but together we can defeat him, Grandmother Spider." "I'm not—" "Oh, but you are, even if you don't know it yet. You are past Spider, the one who wakes the present Spider." A smile appeared, but only on the left side of the woman's face. The muscles on the right side only pulled her face into a horrible mockery of a smile. "Look at the bead above this one. Look into that window." She listened, finding a young blonde girl sitting on the edge of the bridge. In her hands she held a brunette doll. "Are you Grandmother Spider also?" the young girl asked. Lily shook her head, but then heard slurred words answering the girl. "She's the same person, little Spider. Tell her what happened to you." The little blonde girl showed no fear as she talked to the two women separated by time. "I rode my bike down to the bridge so I could drop rocks into the water when an old lady in a canoe came down the river. Tell her about the old woman. She wore a great big hat and had bright green pants. She was so old that she couldn't even climb out of the canoe. I had to come down to where she was. The apparition I saw at GB Hollow," Lily reflected, "the one holding onto the willow tree." "And what did she give you, little Spider?" "She gave me a dream catcher and told me that I was Grandmother Spider now." "What else?" That she closed the loop, that I had helped fight the Wintermaker." There was a short pause before the green-eyed woman asked, "Now do you understand, Lily?" "No. Have I lost my mind?" "The two of you have come to help me fight the horned serpent?" Lily's little Spider giggled, and even Future Spider found a little humor in it. "No, Grandmother Spider. We are not able to help you in the past. Unfortunately, the past is written. We are here to get your help in the present. She's the one with the plan." The blonde girl nodded. Future Spider wiped away the drool from the corner of her mouth. "Both of us know how you woke the Takpai. We also know how you will face the Wintermaker in a few months. In the era of the seventh fire, a choice will be made that will determine whether the world will be destroyed or if an eighth fire will be lit, allowing mankind to survive. Your actions, the choice you will soon make, will ripple into the future, forcing our hands." "We're here to make you feel better," the little Spider said with youthful enthusiasm. "Together, the three of us, the past, present, and future, we can defeat the Wintermaker, but only if we manage to trick him into thinking he has won," Future Spider explained. The web of the dream catcher is complex, and there is only one thread that leads to victory, but many threads that lead to defeat. We are here to assure you of your choices. What sort of choices? Lily asked. If we tell you too much, the Wintermaker might use that against us, resulting in even more death and darkness between us. Just like the dream catcher, time is a loop. You've already seen one of these loops, haven't you? The willow had good counsel. Since you crafted this loop in the past, you have the ability to break the loop and destroy all these visions you see. When you're old, Little Spider added. We hope you don't make that choice, though, Future Spider added. There are things only you are powerful enough to accomplish. We want you to know you are on the right path and to trust the path you are on. Since both of us understand how tricky the Wintermaker can be, we want to give you something that will not only assure you, but will guide you in the future. Would you like this gift? Lily forced herself to take a breath. I don't understand the gift. We will give you a secret from the future, something that will assure you in your darkest hours. It will give you faith to persevere. Yes, I could use a little hope. Go ahead, Little Spider. Tell Lily what she needs to know. The little blonde girl gripped her doll tightly and scooted forward to whisper into the dream catcher. You will visit me in the year 1986. Lily's mind spun, realizing how old she would become and how many dangers she had faced. She'd somehow overcome. If she makes the right choice. Little Spider wasn't finished. When we meet, I will ask you your name. You tell me your name is Lily Guerin. The girl smiled. You're Joey's great-grandma. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Gene Guerin walked the final 12 miles of his 1,000-mile journey from Duluth to Buffalo, New York. On his right, the waters of the Niagara River grew placid as they entered Lake Ontario. Wearing a light jacket and derby hat, he twirled his walking stick, feeling temporarily liberated, as no one in the world knew who he was. He left the priestly garb of the Jesuit spy back at his hotel room, and now, for the first time since he was Lily's age, he walked as his true self. Old Fort Niagara loomed in the distance, with its stone buildings guarding the passageway against the French, Iroquois, and Indian ghosts from the past. Gene knew the reason the retired fort still guarded the lakes, even though the rest of the world now saw it as a tourist attraction. He looked away from the fort, finding the lighthouse, which could be seen through the budding trees that lined the river. He came to a stop, standing, hands on hips, studying the gray door on the landward side, hearing the waves crash against the shore with his own breath. I have no other choice. He headed across the open field and knocked on the door. A wide-eyed young man in his late teens answered, posture uncertain. I'm here to speak with the keeper. I'm a custodian from upriver. A custodian? Yes, of course. Come in. The first floor of the lighthouse was a cozy combination of white stone and stained wood, with heavy beams crossing the ceiling. I'll tell Ray you're here. He's up in the tower, probably reading. There's some leftover stew on the stove if you like it. I had a hearty breakfast, Gene told the young apprentice. A moment later, a portly, balding man wearing suspenders and an unbuttoned dress shirt came rushing through the doorway to the staircase. I hear you're a custodian from upstream a ways. Ray Farr. I'm the keeper, and this is Hugh Burns, my assistant. Can we offer you anything to eat or drink? No. Hugh already offered graciously. I left a bit of a mess back where I came from, and the sooner I can get some help cleaning up, the quicker I can get back. Absolutely, Ray said, tidying his unkempt shirt. Hugh, go get the horses ready, in case we need to send out you on any errands. This brought a broad grin to the young man's face, and Gene turned away. I was thrown to the wolves at his age. Ray led Gene to the stairs. As they climbed, the keeper gave Gene a quick narrative of the lighthouse, which had been built in 1823, with major modifications coming in 1872. Of course, this location had been in use by custodians like yourself since, the 1680s, if I remember rightly. Ray stepped aside to let Jean take in the full view of Lake Ontario from the 3-story structure. Jean took a courtesy glance before saying, "I think I'm in over my head." "Are you now?" Ray asked. "Tell me about your mission." "My mission." The ability to talk to another periphery agent after so much time in isolation caught Jean by surprise, resulting in a release of sobs. He leaned forward, hands on his knees, crying so hard that he thought he might vomit. After a few minutes, the keeper's hand patted him once upon the shoulder, and the moment ended. Jean wiped his face and gritted his teeth, suppressing the emotions with a couple deep breaths. "My apologies," he said, his head bowed. Ray took it in stride. "I'm here to help provide any resources, but to do that, I need to understand your assignment." Where do I even begin? I've been deep undercover for almost a decade. My initial assignment was to investigate the Jesuit order, which was mostly research and library work. I had access to internal documents and information going back centuries. For what purpose? Jean sighed. A few miles from here, the Jesuits built a mission in order to evangelize the indigenous population. It was one of hundreds of missions, churches, and outposts, which was why the purpose was so easily hidden. Between the Atlantic and Minnesota, where I'm stationed, the Jesuit Church created missions at Montreal, Niagara Falls, Detroit, Manitoulin Island, Sault Ste. Marie, and Madeline Island. Does this mean anything to you? Ray's face held honest consternation. Well, they're all along the Great Lakes corridor, aren't they? He's in the dark about my mission. They are the exact location of the Chippewas' western migration, known to them as the 7 stopping places. You see, the Jesuit order became obsessed with the prophecy of the people known as the 7 Fires prophecy. You see as soon as they got a footing on the new continent, they sent many of their brightest and best to study it. And the periphery sent you to find out why. Jean shook his head. Our superiors understood the obsession, but 200 years ago, things went wrong. Neither ally nor enemy understood what happened. Some believed the prize was claimed. Others believed the hoaxes and cover-ups. Regardless, the names of Lesueur and Lahontan were quickly forgotten. My interest in the matter was discovered, and I was sent from the libraries in Rome to a mountain village in the Philippines. I almost lost my life twice in service to the Jesuits, but I did my duty. After I almost died in Cuba, my 2 missions aligned. The Jesuit order just sent me to Minnesota to investigate the crisis happening with the Indian reservations. Ray sighed and shook his head. You'll have to excuse my ignorance on the matter. Well, what crisis? It began with the Dawes Act in 1887, which is an attempt to break up tribal lands by giving them to the individual so that pressure can be applied to local businessmen to acquire the lands privately. It's happening all across the nation, but once again, the Jesuit order became fixated on the lands of the 7 stopping place, Minnesota. You sound like you're on top of this. Why do you think you're in over your head? When I came, I thought it would be similar to my mission in the Philippines and Cuba, where it was to organize local support and, if needed, militarize the oppressed population to fight against the turning of the tide. I have encountered a formidable enemy, Triton. The international network of companies went far beyond the local businessmen in St. John and had enough clout to buy politicians at the national level. While the eyes of the nation focused on how the law impacted tribes in Oklahoma, the center of the attack came in Minnesota. So you've come to help come to me for help," Ray answered. "What do you need?" I made a real mess of things. Lives have been lost. Innocent lives. Gene had been in Detroit when he received the telegraph about the murders of Nanacona and Winnie. How would I ever face Lily again? If I had to break cover to come here, I needed someone. I needed to let someone in the periphery know. Know what exactly? The Philosopher's Stone is hidden somewhere in Hiawatha County. I need a scholar, an expert in Anishinaabe beliefs. I don't even know if we have an agent like that, but if we did, what was the point of sending me? To make a mess of things? Garen felt all of his mistakes twisting in his gut. I need a man who can come to the school I'm building without raising suspicions in the Catholic Church. If the Jesuits get cold feet and withdraw their funds for the school, I have no play remaining. I need someone who can act like a guardian after this crisis ends. Our enemy is moving quickly, and Lily is all that remains. Why not ask for more than one periphery agent then? Gene thought back to his earliest trainings in the depths of Rome. How much did the periphery teach you about the Order of Eos? The enthusiasm in Ray's face faded. Eos? That's your enemy? Gene nodded. It's like a spider's web spread all over the place. If I touch one thread, the entire web vibrates. Even by myself, I've gotten stuck a couple times. But if I bring too much help, all the traps set by Eos will be sprung. I understand your reason to be cautious. Are you sure it's Eos and not other forms of villainy? Gene nodded his head. Yes, the Order of Eos has been interested in the region for generations. If we rush this, or have a sudden show of force, they might panic and do something catastrophic. And then where would we be? My predecessor, Nicolette, went charging in a generation ago, unaware he was aiding the Order of Eos. While he didn't acquire the asset, his actions told them enough. If we don't act quickly, I believe the Order Eos will not only kill the remaining family members, but might threaten the entire Ojibwe nation. Ray's jovial face grew solemn. Well, this is the most excitement this old lighthouse has seen in years. The Jesuit order is still trying to understand what went wrong 2 centuries ago, but I couldn't risk involving them more, nor could I risk attempting correspondence with the periphery. I knew this place was a safe house, a place of extraction, which is why I came here. Of course, yes, I understand some of it, but you plan on returning? As soon as the Jesuit order sent me to Hiawatha County, Eos was already there, watching my every move. So as long as I react to their moves, I doubt they worry too much about me. To these local businessmen, I'm a pebble in their shoe. They're ramping up operations, though, from the legal measures to remove the Chippewa to damming the river and developing a quarry. They are about to do the most ambitious excavation since Pierre Charles Lesueur went to King Louis to fund a copper mine. So, son, you have to excuse my ignorance. The periphery has agents out on all sorts of missions, which I never understand, but I'm just the keeper of the lighthouse. If you need out, I'll get you out. If you need aid, we'll make a quest to provide it. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I can see how you're rattled by your discovery. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. I need to get back to her to protect her because Triton wanted until I left to begin wiping out the family. Gene quickly regrouped. Start with finding an agent well versed in Anishinaabe lore. I can't rely on a 16-year-old girl for my decisions. Yet Lily knew about the Philosopher's Stone, or water drum, as she called it. Numerous names, numerous mythologies, but it was the same object. If Joseph Nicolette had managed to gain access to the cave, things would be so different now. Instead, Jean was left with the scattered pieces of the puzzle, which only now were taking form. Anything else? Ray asked. What happens if I do find it? Do I bring it back to Rome? Will it be hit again? Do I hand it over to the Jesuits and let them decide? I need an extraction plan, starting in Hiawatha County. If it all falls apart, I might need to move the girl and the asset at the drop of a hat. Lily, Nana Conan, and Winner. Winnie were lost, McGeesy taken, and Big Squeak was in custody. She's the only leak to the Philosopher's Stone now, but if I whisk her away into protective custody, it will only affirm matters to Eos. And I'll need an invisible flow of cash. The Catholic Church has funded my new Jesuit school, but it need to be a stronghold for the fight to come. I can't wait for bids and paperwork to be processed. I want that school built as fast as possible with workers I can trust. If it's not too late already. What's in a name? Lily Guerin? The idea festered in her brain. It disgusted her, it angered her, it intrigued her. Am I destined to fall in love with a priest? Am I already in love? Each day after finishing her work at the Looning House, she would sit in the balcony, look at the stars, and ponder her future. Each night the same greeted her. Venus, the Roman goddess of love. Lucifer, the Hebrew light-bearer Satan. Ikweanung, the woman's star. Wabunganung, morning star. Nebuanung, the evening star. Stars connected her to the past, and she felt a strange assurance knowing that despite how the world changed, the stars would remain the same. These stars could also be seen by her in the present by her brother. Oh, look at you.
Picture day.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
You too. The lesson of Lily also knew that whatever happened in the coming months, the stars would be the same in her future. A future with Jean Guerin. Mother sensed it. She saw the way I acted around him. Whore, Jezebel, Delilah. The seduction of the priest had to bring some sort of damnation with it, even though Lily had no plans of seducing him. To the north, she saw the shimmer of color. Jibayang Naimidiwe, which means spirits dancing. She pondered the scientific phenomenon known as the Northern Lights, wondering if it was a good omen or bad omen, or if they were just electrical charges in the atmosphere. Her eyes next found the Milky Way, which her people referred to as the River of Souls. The river led to the Pleiades, which the nuns and Moors taught were named after 7 sisters from Greek mythology. But to Nanak, it was the hole in the sky, the gate to the afterlife. Winnie took pride in being a Catholic, and her expectation was to join her Savior in heaven. Yet, what if she was imprisoned in the waters of Lake Manitou? Suddenly, the thought of saving the children went beyond the present and future. Is that my quest? To save all the souls trapped in this forsaken place? Thinking first of her mother and then of the trapped souls, her eyes wandered to the far north and Ursa Major, the Great Bear. She usually remembered the stories of Wishwe and the Great Bear from her mother when seeing Ursa Major, but it was the story of the Fisher Cat that entered her mind now. She remembered Nanak's intensity as he tried to explain to her the importance of the relationship of the Fisher constellation and the North Star. In the legend, the Fisher Cat battled the Wintermaker of the North to help free the trapped souls. The Fisher Cat, the triumphant hero who freed the souls from captivity. Hero. Now, I'm supposed to be the hero. Both the past and the future looked to her, were waiting on her. Beside her on the balcony, the dream catcher remained silent. The magic within the loom had been used to speak with the spiders. In front of her, hundreds of branches for the willow tree held answers, but Lily did not desire to crawl under it again. The apparition of old Albert had been right about Farrell Looning's decision, and if the rest was true, dark days loomed ahead. Lily woke to the sound of a galloping horse up to the hill to good counsel. The heavy hooves were urgent and stopped suddenly. By the time she sat up and peered over the balcony, the horse, she heard, was already tied to the post at the side of the building. Moments later, she heard voices from the hallway. The door opened. One of the nuns stood, baffled for a moment, until she saw Lily on the balcony. Father Guerin has returned. He needs to speak with you downstairs. My hero has returned, but I don't want it to be true. I can't. She paused for a moment, collecting her strength, then bolted out of the bedroom and down the stairs and rushed into the foyer. Lily stood waiting, his riding cassock filthy from the muddy roads. Lily realized she wore only her sleeping gown right before she threw her arms around him. She embraced the dream. She held on to a promise. She clung to her destiny. From the doorway to the foyer, Sister Inez cleared her throat with disapproval, but Lily held on until she felt her tears soaking the black fabric on his chest. Guerin's body seemed to tense, but he gently patted her back and didn't push her away. I'm sorry, Lily finally said, stepping back away from it. I'm just so happy to see you. We need to talk, Guerin said somberly. His lack of emotion felt like a kick in the stomach. Go get dressed and I will tell you. I already know. Lily nodded and obediently walked to where Sister Inez motioned her. A few minutes later, she joined him in the foyer again. On my return home, I received some horrible news. Your father died in prison. Lily curled her legs to her chest, wrapped her arms around them, and leaned into the cushion of the couch. The circumstances behind it. Just stop talking, Lily muttered, closing her eyes. She sank into the depths of the darkness for several minutes. When you sang the song, you not only woke enemies, but also allies. Lily pulled the reminder close to her heart. I am not alone in this fight. The spiders had answered the call, but instead of a small loop, they previewed future decades into the making. I will find a way through this. When she swam back to the surface, she asked, My brother is in danger, isn't he? Guerin nodded. That is why you won't be staying here any longer. I'm bringing you back to Turtle Island Reservation with me. I'm not going back there, Lily snapped. You don't know what happened. I understand some of it, the Jesuit priest countered, which caused her to sigh and look away from his sincere but naive face. Lily couldn't find the words to tell him about the Wintermaker, or the talk pie, or the ghosts, or the song. What do you think you know? She asked, weary. Guerin looked to confirm the nuns had left the room before he spoke softly. A rumor has gone out to the reservations that the blood of the Ouijigan clan has been found. The words cut right to the core, but Lily tried to protect what remained. What does that mean? A religious revival has been taking place in Canada by a Mide who believes a Messiah figure will lead the people to a great victory. These are people who will do anything to stop this from happening. But there are people who do anything to stop this from happening. Dangerous people. Did one of those people kill my father in his prison cell? As soon as I get back to school, I'm going to Morris to get McGeesey and bring him back. School? Construction began 2 weeks ago, he replied and tried to smile. I have men there that can protect you and your brother while I get the bottom of all this. But how can you take him? Guerin supplied, looking over his circular spectacles at her. On my way east, I spoke to your father while he was in prison. He understood the danger you and your brother were in. He signed papers making you and McGeesey wards of the church. Wards? I become your legal guardian in a way, which allows me to get McGeesey and bring him home. Fool, Lily thought to herself. He's not going to be your husband. He sees you as a child still. Lily Garrett, is that how? Is that what the young spider meant? Father Guerin suddenly leaned forward, but instead of launching himself from his chair, he doubled over, putting his elbows and his knees in his face. He sat motionless for a minute or so until Lily realized he was crying. It surprised her to see her champion suddenly showing such unexpected vulnerability. Shouldn't I be the one crying? What does he have to cry about? She watched the priest slowly pull himself together after a few minutes. I never knew my parents, so I cannot fathom your loss, Lily. But I also grew up as a ward of the church, so I do grasp what it feels like to have no one. He made a frustrated sound. I came to Minnesota because I wanted to protect your people, but now my efforts seem to have spun out of control. I may have revealed your family as the last of the Ouija-God. That is why he cries? This isn't your fault. Lily told him, but again could not find a way to talk openly about the Wintermaker. There were 3 elders who visited Nanakonan last summer. Any of them could have spread these rumors. The world has learned you and McGeesey have the blood of the Ouija-God, and I will do everything I can to protect you. But to best protect you, I think it is time you tell me about your grandfather, what your grandfather taught you. Now, he leaned closer, eyes intent. How did I entertain thoughts of loving him? He just wants my secrets. With a sigh, she looked away. Bring my brother safely back to me, and then I'll tell you everything. Transformation. In the span of a few short months, Lily's world had changed. At Lyons, the grass had already reached up from the earth to surround the saloon, house, and other buildings. The camp of engineers had doubled in number, and the road continued straight for Blue Knife River, where a bridge spanned it. Sitting beside Guerin, Lily followed the curve in the road that led to Nimrod Crossing far to the north. She closed her eyes as they passed by her grandfather's property, but when they neared her home, Guerin explained why the wagon did not stop. I had all of your belongings brought to DeSchmidt Hall, where they are safe and dry. Once the girls' dormitory is built, we can bring them down there. Even from a mile away, Lily could see the new buildings of the school. In her dreams, she had hoped for a simple white building with a bell, but Guerin obviously had grander plans, as he explained to her during the tour. Turtle Island Jesuit School was a campus of flags and stakes. The superintendent's office was a 3-room brick building in the middle of campus, built under a big oak tree. 3 separate crews of men worked on 3 different areas. On the north edge of campus, a crew finished the roof of the DeSchmidt dormitory, which would eventually house nearly 100 boys. In the middle of campus, near the edge of a wooded ravine, another crew of 12 men dug the foundation for the academic building. 200 yards to the south, walls and rafters were being raised for a Vandevelde dormitory, which would house 50 girls. A 4th building, the stable, had been built along the edge of the ravine. Guerin explained every stake and flag of what would become a community of 30 buildings when finished. At the time, the membership of Turtle Island Reservation was 1, Lily. From the superintendent office came Paul Whitewolf. You must be Lily. I'm pleased to meet you. Father Guerin has told me much about you. Paul Whitewolf looked the part of a school superintendent, with his monocle, pleated trousers, and shiny shoes. He was a Potawatomi Indian who'd left Michigan for a formal education in England. His right-hand man, and obviously a spy of sorts. Mr. Whitewolf will run the school this fall, and while I'm gone, you can rest assured knowing you are safe in his care. They spent a few minutes exchanging pleasantries before Guerin motioned for her to follow him. Let me show you your temporary room. He brought Lily to DeSmit Hall, which, despite not being finished yet, was complete enough to hold her belongings. I'll leave tomorrow morning for Morris to get McGeesy. You can take time to sort through these belongings from your house. What about Nanek's belongings? Father Guerin froze, averting eye contact when she looked at him. Mr. White Wolf scoured through the ruins and collected them. He has what could be salvaged in a chest in his office. The dam construction is happening just downstream from his old cabin, but the land now belongs to Triton Corporation. The land is now claimed by... How? The lawyers for Triton are using some antiquated laws that claim the land passed to the Dakota tribe due to the conquest. Conquest? It was murder. Lily pictured the crazed eyes of Adam Thunderface, seeing an evil spirit within him, a spirit she'd woken. Now she wondered if he'd simply been hired by Triton. The court saw it differently. It's fallen into legal limbo. Technically, the land still remains part of the Turtle Island Reservation, but privately it is claimed by Triton. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and Triton is wasting no time as we try to fight this in court. He glanced at her. Is there anything I need to know about Nanek's property? So, he already knows, or suspects something. Lily lowered her head. Yes. Somewhere on the property, he had a secret hiding place. I just don't know where it is. What kind of secret hiding place? Hiding place for the Philosopher's Stone. Lily shot him a cold glare, staying silent. Do you need me to say it out loud? Her time away from home had also given her a better understanding of the legend from across the Atlantic. For thousands of years, the Philosopher's Stone drove men to madness. From kings to scientists, the quest for the enigmatic stone ranged from spiritual enlightenment to frenzied greed. Most legends described it simply, a stone that could transform lead into gold. Yet other legends connected to darker spiritual purposes, including immortality. Lily's connection to the legends of the Wintermaker and Wishwe. Guerin did not press. While I'm away collecting your brother, I'd like to give Mr. White Wolf a tour of the property from your perspective. Mr. White Wolf and the other men here will protect you. They understand. No, they don't understand, and neither do you. Guerin left the next morning for Morris, 100 miles away near the border of South Dakota. To distract herself from his departure, she went to find her family's belongings. Sorting through remaining belongings proved painful, and after hours of crying, Lily found herself knocking on the door of Paul White Wolf. I have summoned allies, too. I need your help, Lily began when the door opened. What kind of help? I know you belong to the same people that sent Father Guerin, and I think I understand what you're looking for. But if we're going to be allies, I need a few things to prepare for the fight. You're more than just a school superintendent, right? He studied her, making Lily suddenly feel naked in front of him. Finally, his eyebrows raised. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. You want to get to know me. At her nod, he sighed. Yes, Miss Lily? I belong to the same people that sent Jean Nicholas to the seminary school, even though I only met him a few weeks ago. Yes, I am more than just a school superintendent. But then again, you are more than just an aspiring school teacher, aren't you? He let go of the door, leaving it ajar. He circled her where she'd stopped at the center of the room. I am not new to this quest, even though I have become one of your knights sworn to defend you. I don't need to explain the seven fires, the symbolism of the water drum, or even the truth about the Ouija-gon. While Father Guerin recovered in a Georgetown hospital, he read my studies and reports on the Anishinaabe, from my Potawatomi perspective, of course. In the old Grail legend, the most experienced knights failed while the pure of heart managed to find the cup of Christ and save the kingdom. If I'm going to play the role of Paul Whitewolf, I need to know if Lancelot and Guinevere are sleeping together. Excuse me? I can't allow a priest to sleep with one of my teachers. Is that clear? Yes, but, no, it's not like that at all. Lily felt as if her ears were on fire and her heart would pound out of her chest. Is it really that obvious? Then explain the nature of your relationship so I can understand it. From the way he talks about you, I can tell he's holding back, and it's quite obvious that you no longer see him as a religious authority. We can't have this in the days to come. At her silence, he prodded. So? She shook her head. She shook as she released her breath she was holding. I can't. Nothing has happened. Nothing even close. No kisses. Nothing like that. I've just had... White Wolf nodded for her to continue. I've had dreams, and not improper dreams like a schoolgirl with a crush. She raised her chin, defiant now against the implications he had made. If you know the truth about the Ouija-Gon, then you know the truth about my family. I've seen things that I can't unsee. While I've had visions while I'm wide awake, these dreams I've had, some of them have come true already. I don't know if I'm forcing them to come true or if they are destined. White Wolf's piercing eyes held focus for a few moments later, and then the kindly superintendent returned as his glance relaxed. I see. I apologize for throwing these accusations at you, but I need you to understand that. Oh, I understand, Lily interrupted, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's not like I want to feel this way about him. If I did, I can talk to him about things, but then I act. You're right. We are allies, but if I'm to do my job properly, I can't let this relationship continue, or things will unravel when the school opens. Do you understand? I do. Now tell me more about these dreams of yours. A few minutes later, Paul Whitewolf sat in the back of the birch bark canoe as Lily gave him a tour down the river. Immediately, she noticed the footings for the dam were already in place, yet the water continued to flow around them. A bit farther, the new bridge passed over the river on its way to St. John, leaving Lily a bit speechless. When the canoe entered the open waters of the lake, White Wolf asked, "Where are we going?" Wordlessly, she took him to Gibby Hollow. I don't know the extent of your skill set, but I figure Father Garin hired you for a reason. Pay attention to anything you see or hear. The last time I came here, they tried to murder me. They? Lily did not try and explain the... Lily did not try to explain the Takpai, and as she stepped ashore, she felt secure leading Paul Whitewolf along the trickling stream. At the sound of wings, her heart leapt until she saw a flock of ravens lift into the sky, their eyes upon her. I must be close. From both sides of the rocky ravine, the branches of the trees touched, making a tunnel of foliage. The ascent of the creek was almost as steep as its banks, and each step forward meant climbing over boulders. Finally, Lily stopped in front of the grand willow. It was twice the size as the one at Good Counsel, and its branches filled the space of the ravine, from the roots sunk into the creek bed to its canopy that almost blocked out the sun. Impressive old tree, Paul Whitewolf said, catching his breath with his hands on his hips. You have no idea. Lily quickly harvested the descending branches, avoiding whatever might be lurking in the shadows near the tree. For making dream catchers, White Wolf surmised as she worked. We're going to need all the help we can get, Lily explained. A short time later, her father's canoe was secure back near her old home, but the expedition was not over. Let me show you the place where we found the Migi shells. Near the place where McGeesee battled the big snapping turtle, Lily brought her new ally. Her fingers began to comb the ground for another, but in doing so, she thought of all she'd lost. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, she began to cry. Paul Whiteloaf let out a long sigh as if annoyed, but a second later, she heard a metallic click. Turning, she saw him holding a cocked pistol in his hands. Her eyes followed the barrel to the opposite shore. Don't shoot, Lily said through her tears. I know him. Kermit Crane stood, slack-jawed, with a small pocket-knife extended. He wore rugged denim and thick flannel. He tilted his head like a curious puppy, and then a half-formed smile on his face. Miss Lily, is that you? Why are you holding a knife, Kermit? His dark eyebrows almost joined, and his square jaw clenched tightly. I followed it here. Kermit turned and pointed to the western shore in reference to his home at Sterling Junction. What did you follow? A bit of boyishness returned as he wrinkled his forehead a little, avoiding her question to ask. Who's that with you? This is Mr. Whitewolf. He's the new superintendent at the school. He's a friend. Whitewolf carried the same somber curiosity as he asked, What were you following? Kermit looked up and down the river before sighing in resignation. I was hunting the Manitou. Lily glanced at Whitewolf and saw how he didn't smirk or laugh. But the Manitou isn't real. Yes, it is. I saw it. It tried to kill me while I was fishing along cattails on the western shore. My dad said I was only dreaming, but I know what I saw. Hesitantly, she asked, What did you see? I didn't see it well. Just one tentacle, I think. It tried to pull me in the water, but I stabbed it. You stabbed it? It bled all over me. I stayed away from the lake after that, but it kept showing up in my dreams. He looked at the knife he still held. Once, there was a boy who picked on me at school. He was a lot bigger, and I was scared of him for the longest time. My father told me the only thing to do with a bully is punch him in the nose when he's least expecting it. So I've been hunting it before it decides to hunt me. But you can't punch the Manitou in the nose. Kermit smiled and nodded. Yes, you can. I snuck into St. Marie's church and stole water from the baptismal fountain. I soaked my castration knife in the water and sprinkled it over my clothes. I went back to the same spot in the reeds to face the Manitou, but he was afraid to face me. He grinned. I even pissed in the water to show him I wasn't afraid that he didn't come out. A fearless ally. Lily's thoughts turned to McGeesee's boasts of using a turtle shell as a shield against the Manitou. You followed the Manitou here? Kermit shook his head. No, it sent the luchar chain after me. I don't know what that word means. Kermit shrugged, finally lowering his curved knife. Little gray demon men? The Tokpai? I was afraid of them at first. Kermit tucked the knife into his belt loop, but then I realized that they could only stand near the water. So I tracked them from land. Now I'm hunting them too. How could he be so flippant, so unconcerned? But they are spirits. How can you hurt a spirit? I thought they were spirits too, but a spirit can't leave footprints, can it? Footprints? Whitewolf walked to the very edge of the water, studied the bank. What do you mean? I tracked the little people here after the last rain. They're small, but they have big feet. Show me, Paul Whiteloaf commanded and began crossing the water to the other side. Kermit knelt. Curious, cautious, Lily moved to join them. And there, along the soft mud collected between the rocks, was a real footprint. See? I followed it from the edge of the quarry all the way here. It led me right up the hill, but I had lost its trail in the rocks. I think it crossed the river. A few minutes later, the three picked up the tracks again. They headed north, to the school. The Freckled Bear. By evening, the threat was determined to be real, and despite the absence of Father Guerin, the entire school transformed from workers to warriors. Lily found herself alone in the back room of Superintendent's office for the rest of the day. She was able to peek out the office window to watch the search. Finally, at supper, White Wolf returned with an explanation. It appears your friend's leprechaun is most likely an adult Chippewa, from the type of moccasin prints we found going north. Where's Kermit? Oh, he left a while ago, with a promise to stop being so foolish. I want you to be a soul of caution also. Stay where we could see you. While the person seems to have gone north, we still need to be careful. Who am I supposed to be afraid of? Who was it? My first thought was that Triton hired somebody to put on moccasins to throw us off the trail. But they own the new quarry and dam and have little reason to harass us now that they have what they want. Most likely, it is just some curious loner who heard about the new school. Noticing his hesitation to answer, she prompted, "Or, it's probably nothing. Father Guerin ordered me to keep you safe, and that's what I plan on doing. For tonight, you can take my quarters, and I'll sleep out here, just to be sure." Pillagers. Lily went to bed thinking of the old blood feud between her family and the pillagers that once took the Nicollet expedition prisoner and later killed her great-grandfather. Chief Sweatingstone now fought to preserve the ancestral lands of Leech Lake. Is the school a problem for him? Torches and rifles were set down the next morning for saws and hammers, yet Lily was instructed to stay put. A wagon full of lumber sent the men into motion, and when the hammering began, she went out to sit on the porch of the superintendent's office. That was when Bjorn Forsberg came strolling across the yard. The freckled red-haired Swede wore denim overalls and a plaid shirt, but he stood so straight he looked more soldier than farmer, and when he stopped in front of her, she half expected him to salute. "Is Mr. White Wolf inside? He has to sign a slip for me." "He's busy doing paperwork right now." She tried to lock eyes with him, but he looked down as he walked past her. A Sioux marrying a Chippewa is one thing, but a native marrying a Swede? Both Lily and Bjorn were now 16, and courtship and marriage were expected of both of them. She shook her head. "No, I can't marry Bjorn or anyone else. I'm going to marry Gene Guerin, or take his last name." Is that what the vision meant? In becoming a ward, do I take on his last name? Lily Guerin? No, that's adoption. He didn't adopt us. He's only our legal guardian. This is all too much. After getting his signature from Mr. White Wolf, Bjorn's heavy boots crossed the covered porch, but when he reached the stairs, he paused. "How have you been?" In all honesty, Lily found him to be one of the most unattractive boys she knew. His freckled neck had caked on grime of barn dust and dirt from the road. His short-sleeved shirt was stained yellow under the armpits, and even at a distance of 10 feet, she could smell his body odor. She'd stopped helping with Sunday school after the attack, and she hadn't been to Split Rock since Guerin brought her to the school. She missed her children. She missed her family. "I've been well, Bjorn. How about you?" He studied his face. Bjorn was nervous as he wanted to say something she might not appreciate. "I bought a new shotgun for hunting birds in the fall. I've been making lots of money hauling lumber for Mr. Fisher." "Do you ever see Albert?" Bjorn shook his head. His blue-gray eyes searching for something in her expression, he turned away. "Have a pleasant day." "That's it?" "You too, Bjorn." Lily watched him slowly walk back to the wagon. "Wait." Bjorn pivoted, his hands clenched in front of his belly. She took a few steps forward and stopped. "Thank you for everything. I'm glad you're my friend." Her words straightened Bjorn's back and his chest inflated. "Of course, Miss Weber." She was relieved at his words, yet angered. Why can't anybody see me for who I am? To Father Guerin, I'm a child. To Bjorn, I'm just a teacher. Bjorn's empty wagon headed down the long driveway before turning north toward Nimrod Crossing, and she turned away. Perhaps I'm not destined to find love. It hurts just waking up each day. Neither the thought of curious Bjorn or dashing Father Guerin would rekindle her heart to feel what she'd once felt for Samuel Thunderface. Then how can I ever have a great-grandchild? The young spider said a name. Joey. Lily went to head back inside. She stopped, watching. 2 men came around Smith Hall into the open yard. There was hammering coming from inside the nearly finished dormitory, but as they grew closer, she noticed 2 peculiarities. First, they carried a big burlap sack that obviously looked empty as it lightly flapped between them. Second, their faces were strangely white. So white, in fact, that Lily didn't even notice that they were Chippewa until it was too late. Their painted faces were meant to resemble skulls, and as her mind tried to process it, all she could do was stand up. That's when another man jumped up onto the porch, slipping a strong hand over her mouth, and pulled her off the porch where the other 2 men waited. With one quick punch, a smaller man hit her so hard in the belly that Lily thought she'd never breathe again. She would have collapsed into a ball if the third man hadn't covered her mouth while keeping her upright. A moment later, she was being lifted and dropped into the burlap sack. She couldn't scream, she couldn't kick, she couldn't even see. But Lily found herself bouncing along as the men began to run. Then she heard a gunshot and a strange grunt beside her. Paul Whitewolf had been filling paperwork. He must have seen something. Still, she bounced along, listening to the breathing of 3 men until she heard a horse and felt things grow darker. I'm in the woods of the ravine. Then her shoulder struck the ground, and a moment later she was rolling, allowing the burlap sack to come off partly. When hands reached for her feet, Lily kicked and kicked and kicked. Again, she felt herself being lifted, but this time, instead of being carried, she felt herself being thrown over a man's shoulder. A school bell rang in the distance. A moment later, Lily dropped again. She felt a wobble that turned into a smooth glide. She was in a canoe. To get across the blue knife, her abductors would need to paddle. As soon as the pressure on her legs eased, she kicked and wiggled to reposition her body, not to run, but to roll. Long ago, when the local pillagers learned a Ouijigan priest brought a Zaganash to the Blue Knife River, they risked the wrath of the government to stop him. Will these men burn me at the stake? She swung all of her weight to a single side, and before she even knew what was happening, the shock of the water had her gasping. Struggling, she wiggled until she was free of the burlap sack and kicked toward the surface. 2 men in the second canoe immediately appeared beside her, but Lily took a deep breath before sinking into the current. Then she kicked and kicked and kicked like a snapping turtle, avoiding capture, until her hands struck rocks. A moment later, she was scrambling onto shore as her abductors floated in the current. Lily managed to climb up 10 yards of shore before 2 Chippewa men sprang from their canoes to give chase. She glanced back and fought the wave of helplessness already. Turning around, her eyes caught a flash of color, causing her to duck. Bjorn Forsberg appeared from behind a tree and in one quick motion swung his shotgun like a broadsword to catch the closest attacker in his face, spinning him wildly in an explosion of blood and teeth. Flipping the shotgun around, he pointed it right at the second attacker, who immediately turned and leapt into the river of the current. Bjorn turned the shotgun again, and with the stock of his rifle landed 2 heavy blows into the midsection of the man wiggling on the ground. Moments later, 6 men carrying guns appeared at the top of the ravine. Exhausted, Lily wrapped her arms around Bjorn's smelly plaid shirt and hugged him tightly. This is the third time he's saved my life. It didn't take long for Mr. Whitewolf and the other men to peel her away from Bjorn, who received a flood of congratulations. I'll get Constable Graham, somebody suggested. No, Whitewolf answered bitterly. Not him. He can't be trusted. Clark, I need you to ride to Wadena and find Sheriff John Eddy. If you see Marshal Morrison or any unfamiliar lawman when you ride, walk away, understand? I understand. But I don't understand. I don't understand any of it. That evening, after supper, shortly after Lily ate supper, a familiar wagon pulled into the schoolyard. The construction workers watched as Father Guerin's wagon came to an abrupt halt. Instead of running to it, she felt her knees weaken, and she sank onto the floor of the porch. She couldn't take any more bad news. If something bad has happened to McGeesy. Lily, unable to stand, still tried to remain optimistic, thinking of everything the apparitions had told. But what if... Hey, too. Chapter 57. Confession. The sound of construction woke Lily from her sleep. With each passing hour, the school grew, a promise fulfilled. But just as the brick buildings were built upon secure foundations, she knew her spiritual alliance was built upon a foundation of lies that would crumble later if she did not do something soon. On the other side of the room, McGeesy slept, his belongings strewn in a space intended for a dozen boys. In the days since his return, McGeesy grew solemn. Lily reminded herself that he was also dealing with the loss of his family, but the glances he gave her were hurtful, and he seemed to avoid her on purpose. When he slept, though, he remained the same boy that left. He's finally home, but is it too late? Even though she wanted to smother McGeesy in more hugs, she let him sleep. She quickly dressed and waited on the front steps of the dormitory. Lily had no choice. She had to come clean. She had to tell him everything. Guerin and Whitewolf both came out of the office at the same time, already in the middle of conversation. When they noticed her, it was Guerin who hesitated. How to begin? The choices overwhelmed her, and her plan changed with each long stride he took toward her. Nearing her, Whitewolf slowed, calling out a greeting as he passed. "Morning, Miss Lily." Miss Lily, a teacher without any students. "Be careful what you wish for," Winnie had often said. "You might just get it." "Good morning," Guerin said next, his toes in front of her. No more half-truths. Talk to him. "Do you have time to talk?" "I do." Lily hummed. "Do you have a pistol?" "I do." "Then let's go find a place at the river." She stood, leading him back to the place where Bjorn Forsberg had saved her days earlier from an abduction attempt. Although Whitewolf and Sheriff Eddy had been baffled by the skull-faced prisoner, Guerin immediately interpreted what it meant and who sent him. Triton. Lily trusted his knowledge of villains. Upon reaching the Blue Knife River, Lily found a large, bench-sized stone to sit upon, prompting Guerin to join her. "Do you believe in the prophecy?" she began. "Yes, I do, however slippery it might be." "Do you believe in destiny?" "In a manner of speaking, yes." "And do you believe in God?" He scoffed. "He is known by many names and qualities, but yes, I believe in God." Lily took a deep breath. "I don't fully understand how or why, but I was visited by apparitions from the future. Maybe I'm having a mental breakdown, but I think they were real." Lily paused. "How can you tell if you're insane?" she mused. At his silence, she continued. "When the 7 Fires prophets visited my people, or when angels visited Moses and Abraham, They all had to trust their sanity to receive the message. Do you know Albert Fisher? The son of the local lumber baron. Willie nodded. I was visited by him, except he was very old. I think he came to me from the future to guide me and to give me a purpose. Aaron reflected for a moment before prompting, what purpose? To save the children. You see this school as a fulfillment of prophecy. Lily shook her head. No, it was different than that. Lily Guerin. The children have my eyes. I think I am fighting to protect the future. Does that make sense? I understand. It's why I wanted to build the school and why I wanted your help. He's not listening. Lily made a sound of exasperation. The children I dreamt about are threatened by the horned serpent. To fight the horned serpent, there must be 3. A Firehandler, the great Thunderbird, and the Omadai. Garen motioned for her to continue. Omadai is an empty vessel. I think the plan of the Wintermaker is to rise from his tomb, take on new flesh, and defy the will of God. The dark magic that surrounds this place keeps his soul, and any other soul, from drifting to the place where all souls must go until his fated day. The river of souls, the land of the midnight sun. Heaven, hell, Sheol, Valhalla, the underworld. The Omadai is both victory and defeat. For us, it is bait to draw him up from the depths, and once vulnerable, we can kill him. How do you kill something that isn't alive? I don't have all the answers yet, but the servants of the Wintermaker, creatures Nanak knew as the Takpai, they've woken up and now go about their master's business regardless of what we do. We need to protect young Albert. The old Albert told me as much. Garen frowned. His father's a respectable businessman with business ties to Triton. I'm not quite sure how I could bring that up in a conversation. Albert knows, and so do the others. You heard about Kermit Crane. I think the Takpai are going after any threat to their master. I think God has sent people who can help fight in this. Lily studied Garen's face to anticipate how he was taking it. Again, he seemed sincere and ponderous. Kermit Crane was sent to help. He's just a boy like Albert. And Bjorn Forsberg, and Martin Nielsen, and Farrell Looning. I know, it almost sounds silly talking about out loud. In the old stories, there are always groups of people who guided the heroes. Just like in the Bible, Jesus had disciples that... You blasphemous sinner, did you just compare yourself to Christ? Garen didn't speak, only nodded. A foundation of lies to be torn down so I can start over. I have to tell you what happened in White Earth, Lily whispered. This time, Garen seemed surprised by her words. His brow wrinkled and his mouth opened. She held a hand up for him to stay silent. As you know, things are much different than they are here or at Morris. Even inside the schoolroom, things were so tense and hostile. My first few weeks, I was so happy to be teaching that I ignored the signs. There was a... Lily couldn't even decide how to describe him. His Christian name was Jacob Brightsky, and he decided that I should be his wife. He was 17 already and would linger outside the schoolroom in the afternoons. I'd ended my relationship with Samuel Thunderface, so I was flattered to have a beau as soon as I came to White Earth. But Jacob Brightsky did not want a relationship. Lily, don't let him interrupt. It was a Wednesday, and I'd stayed late to finish grading. And in December, the sun disappears before 5 o'clock. His voice caught my attention, and when I stopped to talk to him, he dragged me by the wrist into some dark alley. It all happened so quickly, and he was so strong. Oh, Lily. She couldn't say the words. When it was over, I crawled out of the alley, only to be found by one of my students, William. He was just a boy, like Albert or Bjorn or Kermit. I was scared. I was hurt. And I was angry. I didn't just accept William's help. I enlisted him. Lily took a deep breath. I turned him into a weapon. First William, and then the other young boys. I unleashed them, even though I still held their chains. Within a few weeks, Jacob Brightsky was found dead, beaten to death. The boys returned to me like a pack of dogs, tails wagging, seeking my approval. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. I enchanted them. The old blanket men were right. I bewitched them. Whatever gifts God bestowed upon me, I turned it into something evil. So now, I don't trust myself to do what is right. Lily began crying, and when it was over, she realized Garen had put his arm around her shoulder to comfort her. She scooted over and shook off his pity. Now he knows. Yet the weight of her deed did not lessen. Garen cleared his throat. We can aspire to be like Christ, but all men and women fall short. On the road to Damascus, Christ chose a man who hunted his disciples. The man who had been Saul transformed into the Apostle Paul, who never forgot his former sins, yet still became a great evangelist for God. He patted her knee. You don't have to remain the person who went to White Earth. You have to remain the person you were. You don't have to remain the person you were yesterday. All you need to do is become the person you need to be tomorrow. I'm not sure I can. With the backside of her wrist, Lily wiped her tears away. If we find it, what happens then? His mouth opened for a moment as if to protest. You didn't come to listen to me cry, and I didn't come here for my people. You came, and didn't come here for my people. Okay. You came to investigate the stories about the Philosopher's Stone. What happens if we find it? I honestly don't know. I'm glad God has sent you as allies. I'm glad God has sent you allies. I too have allies. Your grandfather knew these allies existed. I brought Paul Whitewolf here because he knows the history of the quest better than I do. There are only a handful of people alive that know why I'm here, and I have no specific orders on what to do if I find anything. And now this. But know this. My first priority is to make sure it doesn't fall into the hands of our enemies, and to protect you. Lily found herself breathing heavily. My chaste knight of the Round Table. Knowing she had a protector was thrilling, but knowing real villains lurked terrified her. Triton. The nefarious company owned pineries, a new quarry, and the Nicollet Dam. And despite White Wolf's best efforts, they even claimed Lily's abductor from the city jail before answers could be found. What does Triton want? Is it just the Philosopher's Stone? Or do they serve the Wintermaker also? Aloud she asked, but if we do find it, what then? We prepare for a fight. Our school could serve as a fortress, but only against physical threats. I don't know how to fight the paranormal. Neither do I, Lily shrugged at his skeptical stare. If I didn't get to finish my training, there are pieces missing. How do we finish? Nanak called for help with Magisi. There were 3 blanket men, secret members of the Ouijigan clan, who answered the call. Give me their names, and I can find them. Clyde speaks first, Joseph Littletoad and James Graysky. They are the last of the Grijigan elders.